Urban legends, creepy stories, and disturbing hoaxes have been on the internet for as long as the internet has been around. New stories are created every day, while other urban legends have stood the test of time, being adapted to new formats and creeping out new audiences. The theory that reality isn't quite what it seems is nothing new. Neither is the theory that we live inside a computer simulation. But if that's the case, it stands to reason that there's a possibility we might no-clip out of existence. No-clip is a phrase that originated in the gaming community, for when a player somehow finds themselves beyond where the creator programmed them to go. Usually being in that space makes the game unplayable, especially if there's no way out. But if we were to clip out of existence in real life, the solution to that problem would be even more disturbing. According to this internet urban legend, when this accidental clipping happens in real life, we end up in the back rooms. The story of the back rooms first originated on 4chan in 2019. An anonymous user posted a picture of a space that gave viewers a creepy feeling. It was simply an empty office space with yellow lighting, carpets, and walls that seemed to jut out randomly. The image alone was eerie enough before another user gave it a caption, saying, quote, "If you're not careful and you no-clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the back rooms where it's nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum hum buzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it certainly has heard you." The image and the story that went with it found its way onto Reddit, and from there, the rest of the internet. Users responded by saying they felt as if they'd visited the backrooms in a dream, or they had a feeling they had visited in reality but couldn't quite remember. The horror story was solidified when YouTuber Kane Pixels posted a 9-minute found footage video of someone who accidentally clipped into the backrooms. The cameraman had been working on what looked like a student project when he fell and appeared in the backrooms. As well as the unsettling feeling that comes with a place that isn't quite familiar, there's also something else lurking in the space with him. The backgrounds is, of course, fiction, but that doesn't make the images of the endless, windowless hallways any less disturbing. It's been described as having an uncanny valley effect, but rather than it being something that doesn't quite look human, it's a place that almost looks like somewhere we've been every day, but not quite. There's places that would normally be filled with activity, which are strangely empty, and the viewer feels like there's somewhere they're not supposed to be. In the early days of the internet, urban legends that originated offline could rapidly spread and be accepted by fact by people who didn't have the fact-checking abilities we have today. With the help of the internet and a large audience who wanted the story to be true, the disturbing urban legend of the well to hell has lasted decades. The story started in 1989 in religious newsletters across the US and Norway. The legend stated that Soviet scientists had recently drilled a hole through a hollow center of the Earth in Siberia. The scientists wanted to drill deeper than anybody had before, but only reached 12,000 meters when the drill head started to spin rapidly, indicating that they'd broken through to someplace hollow. Shocked, the scientists lowered sensors into the hole and a high-quality microphone. Temperatures reached 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and the microphone recorded the sound of millions of people screaming. Most of the workers fled in panic. Those that didn't were given medication to make them forget. Later versions of the legend claimed that the devil himself appeared and wrote the message, "I have conquered," in Russian into the night sky. The story was mostly spread through Christian newsletters, with more details being added from telling to telling. In 2002, the urban legend received another piece of lore when it was featured on the radio show Coast to Coast. After a brief discussion on the topic, a listener emailed in to tell of his experience with the legend. He claimed it was all true, and his uncle had collected an audio recording of the screams from a friend at BBC. The recording was roughly 30 seconds of layered screaming. The new media file helped spread the urban legend online, now with added proof. Later, internet sleuths figured out that the audio recording was looped and may have originated from an Italian horror movie. Added to the changing details and the lack of any drilling project in Siberia, the urban legend is mostly accepted as an early internet hoax. But that doesn't make the sounds any less creepy. Smile Dog is one of the classic internet urban legends that has seen a recent revival on TikTok. The disturbing cursed image is said to date back to the very early days of the internet, but the format means that every new innovation in the way we communicate leaves potential for Smile Dog to be revived. According to the urban legend, Smile Dog first appeared back in 1992 on a bulletin board. Only 400 people saw it, and most of those either remained anonymous or didn't survive to tell their tale. Somehow, an aspiring writer heard of this strange story and approached the one person who was willing to share her experience, a woman named Mary. They arranged a meeting, but when the writer arrives, Mary has barricaded herself in her room and refused to meet with them. The writer goes home disappointed, but is contacted a few days later via email. Mary explains that the image of Smile Dog has been haunting her ever since she first saw it, appearing in her dreams and urging her to spread the word. She had initially wanted to spread it to the writer, believing it would finally break her curse, but didn't want to be responsible for cursing another person. More time passes and the writer receives another email, this one with a file attached. It's the disturbing image of a dog with human-like teeth smiling at the camera. Some versions of the legend say that there's a footprint or strange red light in the background. The writer also receives the message to spread the word, which is why they decided to share the story. The urban legend is believed to have originated on 4chan, but has since been passed through every kind of forum the internet has to offer. Many different versions of the Smile Dog photo have been shared online, most of them unsettling in their own ways, all with the chain email style message to spread the word. Even more than 20 years on from when the story originated, Ted the Caver remains a disturbing legend with just enough information for people to question if it really happened. The story dates back to 2001 and the early days of personal blogs. It was shared via Ted's Caving page, a blog on the Angel Fire platform. Ted was a caving and spelunking expert living in Utah. In March of that year, he made up a post describing a strange cave he had uncovered and told his followers he would type up his journals from the past explorations of the cave. While exploring an otherwise ordinary cave, Ted and his friend Brad came across a small hole. There was wind coming from behind the wall, and it seemed like there was something on the other side. The two friends decided they would expand the hole so one of them could climb inside. Over the next several entries, the two friends expanded the hole and had some strange encounters. Brad's dog wouldn't go near the hole, even though it was fine with the rest of the cave. A strange rumbling sound could be heard, but the men brushed it off as the sound of traffic. And during every trip to expand the hole, the pair would realize the wind and rumbling had stopped and get an uneasy feeling telling them to leave. Ted eventually gets through the hole and explores the chamber on the other side. Images of the passages are shared on his blog, adding to the authenticity of this creepy urban legend. But photos from the chamber itself all came out blank. Ted describes a strange symbol with figures drawn underneath it, which is etched onto the wall. Finally, Ted describes a disturbing encounter. While alone in the chamber, he hears a scraping sound behind him and drops his flashlight. He has a wired phone connection to Brad, who's on the outside of the hole, but he can't get through. He discovers that a rock has been pushed to close the entrance to the chamber and it's crushing the wire. Ted makes his escape, but feels as if something has followed him out. At this point, he decides to create a blog to track his adventure. Ted feels that he needs to go back and find out what was in this mysterious cave. He lists the items he's taking, which include weapons and extra flashlights, and promises to report back. But this is the final blog entry. For years, people have speculated about the authenticity of the story and what, if anything, happened to Ted. Everything from toxic fumes to mental illness to the paranormal was suggested. Ted eventually came forward and revealed that it was nothing more than creative writing. Though he was a caver and all the photos were real, the story has since been made into a film. What makes the story a long-lasting urban legend is the number of people who have disappeared while caving. Similarities to the story of Kenny Veach, a real caver who went missing while exploring for a mysterious cave, makes it seem like this could or even did happen. Every day, countless photos are uploaded to the internet. Most are mundane. Some are things that the viewer thought were strange, and according to urban legends, the wrong photo can even shut down a website. There are plenty of internet urban legends about photos being removed because they show something the government doesn't want the public to see. The subjects are often alleged UFOs or aliens found on secret government websites or taken by the user themselves. Like many urban legends, this one got its start on 4chan. On February 23, 2017, threads started appearing on various 4chan boards asking about an image that had supposedly shut the site down. The site had only just come back online after a brief shutdown, and according to these posters, an image that had been posted moments before had disappeared. According to the posters, the photo had been posted between 12 and 2 a.m. Eastern Time to the politically incorrect board. It was titled, quote, 24489, taken approximately 24 miles northwest of Luke Air Force Base, Phoenix, Arizona, Lab H4C. Those who claimed to have seen the image said it was an extremely realistic-looking alien. Speculation about a real alien photo that had shut down a website spread across the internet. Anonymous users who claimed to have seen the photo described what it had looked like. The alien was on the left side of the picture, looking to the left of the camera. It had yellow scales, prune-like eyes, and a shriveled-up mouth. The image was taken outside, and there was a tree in the background. Soon, an apparently corrupted version of the photo began to circulate. For some reason, people had noted the image title but hadn't taken a screenshot of the photo itself. Some say that they hadn't thought the image was serious until it was taken down, while others claimed that it gave them an uneasy feeling. Many internet sleuths didn't believe the story and got to work tracing the source of the corrupted image. It wasn't long until the alien in the photo was matched to another photo, taken of a creature in the TV show X-Files. The original creator of the image eventually came forward and confirmed it was all a hoax. He had made the plan with friends in Discord, which explained why the details of the photo's descriptions were all similar. Certain 4chan boards had gone down at about 2 a.m. on February 23rd, but this was a regular occurrence for maintenance. The user simply wanted to know how long it would take for people to figure out the truth. The fact this was proven as fake hasn't stopped the urban legend from being spread, especially among those who want to believe. Excavation workers in Jerusalem uncovered a strange carving on the walls of a 1,000-year-old moat. The carving has left experts baffled, but they hope to one day be able to solve this strange mystery. Beneath an unsuspecting road in Jerusalem lies an ancient moat that has remained covered for most of modern history. The ancient city walls are still visible on one side of the street and date back to the 14th century. It's believed the walls were built on even more ancient fortifications. As part of an infrastructure project, the street was excavated, revealing the ancient moat beneath. In medieval times, the moat would have surrounded the city walls, protecting the old city from invaders. It was a dry moat. Unlike those in Europe, it wouldn't have been filled with water. But at 10 meters wide and between 2 and 7 meters deep, it was a serious obstacle for invading armies. During one of the Crusades, European armies spent weeks trying to cross it. Meanwhile, city defenders were able to attack from above or sneak into the moat through hidden passages. The moat itself wasn't too much of a surprise for archaeologists, given its importance to the city's history. But on the walls of the moat was a carving that wasn't explained. The carving was an obvious human handprint with slightly elongated fingers. Archaeologists were able to reach the carving and showed that it was only slightly larger than their own. The carving isn't especially deep, but is clearly visible even centuries after it was carved. So far, this strange carving is the only one that's been discovered on the walls of the moat, which makes it even more mysterious. Archaeologists don't yet know who carved the hand or why. It's possible this was made by city defenders and may have signaled one of the hidden passageways or something else. Alternatively, it may have been carved by one of the European attackers in memory of somebody during the siege. Archaeologists are hopeful that further excavation can solve this mystery, with more evidence or even more carvings being found which could offer an explanation. There is an alternative theory that might not have much evidence though. It's possible that the handprint was a simple prank, carved thousands of years ago by somebody who simply wanted to make a mark on the wall, who never could have imagined the mystery they would provide for future archaeologists. In the village of Asuka, in the Japanese district of Nara, there lies a strange historical unsolved mystery. A series of strange monuments, which may date back 500 years, lie in the vegetation, waiting for their true purpose to be discovered. The most famous of these stones is the Masuda no Iwafune, or the rock ship of Masuda. The large stone monolith lies near the top of a hill near an otherwise ordinary village of Asuka. Everything from a door to a tomb to an astronomical calendar have been suggested, but the purpose of this rock remains a mystery. The rock ship is 11 meters long, 8 meters wide, and 4.7 meters high. The top of the granite rock has been flattened and is tilted slightly towards the top of the hill. Two shallow rectangular holes are carved into the flat surface, and a groove runs parallel to the rectangles. On the underside, a series of grooves makes a lattice, which is believed to be how the creators flattened the opposite surface. Dating the stone ship is nearly impossible. Carbon dating doesn't work on stone structures, and normally archaeologists will compare art styles, records, and other tools to date a structure. But no records of who built the rock ship or why have been uncovered. An initial theory was that it was a monument of some kind built by Buddhists. Many ancient Buddhist shrines and temples have been found in the area, but none look like anything from Masuda no Iwafune. An alternative answer to the mystery is that it was used by the ancient Japanese as a calendar. During the spring, the ridge on the top of the stones lines up exactly with the sunset. This was an important marker to the start of the agricultural season. The area surrounding Asuka has been inhabited since between 250 and 552 CE. This time period is most famous for its earthen mounds surrounded by moats. Researchers have concluded that there are no remains anywhere near the rock ship, but one theory suggests that this wasn't meant to be the case. It's been suggested that the mysterious monolith is simply a tomb door that was never used. While there are plenty of theories that could explain this strange case, the lack of evidence means the unsolved mystery will continue to baffle experts for years to come. In Chatsworth, Georgia, there's a state park named after a mysterious wall that has left experts baffled for centuries. The Fort Mountain State Park is home to an ancient structure that's yet to be explained. The structure in question is more of a wall than a fort, and is only a few feet high at most points. But its unexplained history has attracted plenty of visitors trying to solve the mystery. The wall in question lies near the top of Fort Mountain. It's 855 feet long and mostly around 2 feet tall, but it can grow up to 6 feet tall in some places. The wall is made up of stones taken from the mountain itself, but little else is known about the wall for certain. Experts believe the wall was built sometime between 500 and 1500 CE, at a time when Cherokee Native Americans lived in the area. According to the park's website, Cherokee lore attributes the wall to the Moon-Eyed people. The Moon-Eyed people are just as mysterious as the wall they created, being small, pale-skinned people that saw better at night. According to Cherokee legend, they were defeated by the Cherokee, and Fort Mountain may have been their last stand. Archaeologists believe the mysterious wall may have simply been built by the Cherokees themselves, or a different Native American tribe. No archaeological evidence has been found at the site that could be used to identify the creators, though. For a while, it was suggested that Spanish conquistadors built the wall to protect themselves from the local people while looking for gold in the mountain. That theory has largely been debunked. Even if the question of who is answered, why the wall was built is equally mysterious and unexplained. Throughout Scotland, there lie dozens of underground tunnels and passages, mostly hidden from view from the outside. Some date back as far as the Iron Age, but all offer archaeologists no clues as to what their actual purpose could be. Even with the advancement of technology and laser mapping, experts are still baffled about this strange mystery. In Scotland, the tunnels are known as souterrains. So far, more than 40 have been discovered. One of the few things we know for sure about these mysterious structures were that they were made, rather than simply dug out. It's believed that ancient people dug out trenches before reinforcing the sides with stone and placing a capstone on top. It was a method that lasted the ages. The oldest of the mysterious souterrains date back to the Iron Age, but some were created as recently as the first few centuries BCE. The later ones were apparently abandoned when the Romans left Britain. Even though these structures were carefully created, the insides apparently have no carvings that could have indicated what they were designed for. The souterrains we've discovered today are mostly empty. It's not known if they were emptied by the original users or if later treasure hunters stumbled across whatever was left inside. Whichever is the case, archaeologists and other experts have been left with little information that could explain what the tunnels were used for. One possibility is that they were used for storage. The cool environment would have been the perfect place to store grains or dairy products such as cheese. The problem with this explanation is just how inaccessible the tunnels are. Chambers in some souterrains would require people to crawl through, and in many cases, the openings are less than a meter tall. Other experts have suggested the souterrains were used as hiding places from bandits. Practicality would again be a problem. Even though the tunnels haven't yet been completely mapped out, it appears they don't connect to one another. Anybody hiding out in the tunnels would effectively become trapped in this small, lightless location. Other suggested answers to this strange mystery include places to secure prisoners and places of worship for some ancient, long-lost gods. Scotland isn't the only location with these souterrains. Ireland, Cornwall, Brittany, and Normandy all have their own, each as mysterious as the last. It's likely there's no one explanation for all the tunnels, but experts have not found proof of any explanation. Stonehenge in England is by far the most famous mysterious circle of standing stones, but it's not the only one. While plenty of research has been done into the British archaeological site, more mysterious standing stones are those that appear in places where human activity is limited. It was Leilson Camelo da Silva who first brought the Amazon Stonehenge to the attention of scholars. The ring of stone circles lies just above the equator of the Amapá state in Brazil. It's made up of 127 blocks of granite, some of which are up to 4 meters tall, with a circular diameter of 30 meters. The site lies on the bank of the Rio Grande River, which lends its name to the more official name of the mysterious site. Leilson discovered the stones while hunting boar in the area as a teenager. He then came across them again while clearing trees to make way for cattle grazing. He wasn't the first to have discovered them, with a Swiss-Brazilian naturalist having written about the mysterious site in the 19th century. But archaeologists at the time didn't believe there could have been civilizations in the rainforest capable of such work. Leilson was less skeptical and made himself a caretaker of the site. Since its rediscovery in the 90s, it's gained the attention of archaeologists and scholars, but so far it remains just as mysterious as its more famous namesake. More and more research is uncovering lost societies that once called the Amazon rainforest their home, and it's likely one of these societies created the mysterious stone circle. Researchers have pinpointed a location further up the river where the stones were likely brought from, but who exactly created the structure and why remains a mystery. It's believed the structure was created around 1,000 years ago, 500 years before Europeans began to colonize the area. So far, there's been no evidence of any settlements discovered near the Rio Grande site, but broken pottery and urns have been uncovered near the stones. Experts believe at least part of the site was a graveyard, though it isn't believed to be the sole reason for the stones. A popular theory is that the structure is an astronomical site. There are claims that on the winter solstice, one of the stones lines up closely with the sun. It's not clear whether or not the claims are accurate, but it's possible the stone circle was used to mark significant dates in the year. It may also have been used as a spiritual site, or simply a guide marker for hunters and fishermen to stop people from getting lost. It's likely that the Amazon has many more unsolved mysteries waiting to be uncovered, and each one may help explain a little more about the other strange artifacts we find. Most of us have been the victims of a robbery, and it's always a traumatic experience. But those items that have been taken are usually replaceable, unless they have significant sentimental value. But when the stolen items are original pieces of art, they're impossible to replace, and in many cases, it seems to be a senseless crime, since the paintings are very recognizable and anyone who buys them after the fact runs the risk of ending up in jail. One such case occurred on the 26th of March, 2019, when a set of paintings were being shipped from Santa Fe to Louisiana. All in all, 6 paintings were stolen after they were loaded onto a trailer, and they were valued at around $80,000. The paintings were created by 2 different artists, Nicole Charbonnet and Aaron Cohn, who were understandably distraught when they were told of the theft. Despite a thorough investigation, the paintings were never tracked down, and they remain missing today. In a strange twist to the case, gallery owner Arthur Roger received 2 phone calls a few months later from someone who inquired about some of Aaron Cohn's paintings. During the calls, they wanted to know what the paintings would be worth, and Roger immediately knew something was wrong, and he would later learn that the artwork had been stolen. At the same time, Aaron received messages on her website from someone who claimed to have found one of her paintings entitled Stasis. The person claimed that they found that the painting was stolen and hence wanted to talk to Aaron about it. But investigators instantly knew that they were trying to ransom the painting back to the artist, a common practice when artwork becomes unsellable due to there being a digital footprint of the work online. The FBI has offered an $8,000 reward to anyone with information that leads to the current location of the paintings, and they can be contacted at their Albuquerque office by dialing 505-889-1300. Working as a FedEx or UPS driver can be very stressful, but it becomes even more so when criminals begin targeting the trucks that are sent out to make deliveries for these companies, since it puts the lives of the drivers in danger, and in many cases, it leads to large financial losses. That's exactly what happened in Washington, D.C. and Maryland between the 10th and 17th of November in 2020, when a group of robbers began targeting these delivery trucks in a bid to get their hands on the merchandise within. And in the span of less than a year, 27 of these trucks were robbed. Investigators believe that the robbers had inside information on the deliveries, since they seemingly knew which trucks held the most expensive items, including PlayStation 5 consoles, cigarettes, and electronic equipment like tablets and cell phones. The group used a technique known as the rollover, during which the delivery truck is boxed in by the robbers' vehicles, making it impossible to maneuver past them. Next, one of the robbers would climb out of the sunroof of the trailing vehicle while using a safety harness, and they would gain entry to the back of the trailer with the use of a bolt cutter or a similar tool. The robber would then grab as many boxes as they could, passing them back through the sunroof before speeding off with their haul intact. Robert Bornstein from the FBI stated that they believe these robberies were on the rise at the time due to the release of the PlayStation 5 console and the iPhone 12, which would be easy to sell after the fact. Investigators were able to obtain images of the robbers, and they've been made available to the public, but the perpetrators had their faces very well concealed during the robberies, and they're yet to be identified. This case is being investigated by the FBI, along with the DC Police Department, and a reward of up to $10,000 has been offered to anyone with information that leads to the capture and prosecution of these criminals. Any tips can be submitted by the FBI's Washington field office at 202-278-2000. Alternatively, you can contact the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department at 202-727-9099. There are some instances when a crime seems to be completely senseless, since the outcome doesn't benefit the culprit in any way, which was the case on the 5th of January 2009, when a woman became the victim of a strange kidnapping in Cranston, Rhode Island. At around 9:30 that morning, the woman, who's not been named for safety concerns, was opening a nail salon that she owned when a man gained entry to the building through the salon's back door. He then drew a weapon and told her to get on the ground, after which he placed a damp cloth over her mouth and nose, and before she could do anything, she lost consciousness. When she woke up, she was horrified to find that she was in the man's vehicle, which she described as being either a van or a minivan. At this point, the woman was panicking, since these types of scenarios very rarely end well, but she found that there was nothing she could do since the vehicle was moving. She noted that there was a very large plastic container in the car, and fearing for her life, she decided to try and get the attention of other motorists. But her abductor saw what she was doing and quickly told her to stop, which she had no choice but to do. Remarkably, the man then drove to the South Shore Shopping Plaza in Braintree, Massachusetts, where he stopped the vehicle and let the woman out before speeding away. The victim was able to provide investigators with a description of her attacker, and a sketch has since been released to the public in case someone's able to identify the culprit of this strange crime. Police believe the man is around 28 years old, and they've described him as being around 6 feet tall, with short, light-colored hair and hazel eyes. He has a slim build, but the woman was unable to estimate his weight. She added that he dressed presentably and that he was clean-shaven. She also noted that he was wearing a black, square-faced watch and that he seemed to be from the local area since she recognized his accent. The woman was taken to a nearby hospital immediately after she was released by her kidnapper, and she managed to escape any injuries. The FBI has asked the public to be on the lookout for a green or blue Dodge Caravan with the Rhode Island plate ID 171. Anyone who recognizes this man has been urged to contact the Cranston Police Department at 401-477-5143. It's always a shock to learn that a perpetrator of a crime is one of the police officers who swore to protect members of the public, but it's a sad reality that does occur, as it did on the 6th of December 2007 in Harris County, Texas. The crime involved a 43-year-old police constable named Thomas Espinoza, who's been on the run since 2013, when he pleaded guilty to his crimes, and investigators now believe he may be hiding out in the Houston area, since his wife and children are still living there. As for the crime that he's accused of, Espinoza decided that he wanted to make some extra money by serving as a guard for a vehicle that was carrying around 11 pounds of an illegal substance that was being moved from one area of Houston to another. Shockingly, he performed this crime while wearing his police uniform, which he used to his advantage during a spate of separate crimes, during which he would pull over vehicles to the side of the road. He would then conduct a search of the vehicles, and if he came across any illegal substances, rather than arrest the culprit or report it to his superiors, he would keep it for himself, either to use or sell off later. He would also pocket any money that he came across during these searches. After he was arrested for his crimes, Espinoza admitted his guilt, and his sentencing hearing was set for the 16th of September 2013, and he faced up to 20 years behind bars. But he failed to appear and decided to go on the run instead. The FBI has offered a reward of $5,000 to anybody who can supply information that leads to his capture, but members of the public have been warned that he likely has access to weapons, and as such, he's considered armed and dangerous and should not be approached for any reason. If you or anyone you know has any information on Espinoza's whereabouts, you're urged to contact the FBI's Houston field office at 713-693-5000. If you'd like to remain anonymous, you can submit a tip online at tips.fbi.gov. Some criminals will do anything to get their hands on the money that their victims have earned, even if it means preying on people who are in a difficult financial position already, which makes their crime all the more heinous. Husband and wife John and Julianne Demetrian are two such criminals who found their way onto the FBI's most wanted list for crimes that they committed against distressed homeowners, people who are struggling to pay their mortgages. Investigators believe that the couple was used to living a life of luxury, but when this lifestyle was no longer viable, they decided to fund it with the use of other people's money, which they acquired via a scam. In 2009, the pair would speak to distressed homeowners in Oahu, Hawaii, about their financial situations, after which they convinced them to hand over their homes with the promises that they would be able to help them recover financially by investing the money they made from the sale of these homes. But unbeknownst to their victims, the couple would then pocket the money, using it to buy expensive jewelry, cars, and clothing in order to keep living a lavish lifestyle that they'd grown accustomed to. When the scam was uncovered, both John and Julianne were arrested, and they pleaded guilty to their crimes. But before they could be sentenced the following year, the couple had disappeared. Investigators believe they were aided in their escape by a group called the Sovereign Citizens Movement, who provided them with a chartered plane that flew them to Utah, after which they procured a vehicle and traveled to Alabama. It was also later discovered that the couple had been in constant contact with their parents, using disposable cell phones and a video calling program to keep in touch on a monthly basis and during holidays. But investigators have been unable to obtain any information on the scammers' whereabouts from their parents, and they remain on the run. But John and Julianne have warrants against them for failure to appear in court, and the FBI has asked anyone with information on their current whereabouts to come forward by contacting their nearest FBI field office or reporting to the nearest American embassy. 18-year-old Perry Otto Corlew of Grayling, Michigan, wasn't your average 1970s teenager. Instead of being interested in school and building his career, Perry found much more interest in a life of crime. By early 1974, Perry had found himself on probation after a spate of burglaries. His family hoped that as time went on, he would mature and grow up to be a sensible adult. Unfortunately, the future was taken away from Perry one mysterious night. On March 15, 1974, Perry was driving his green 1971 Buick Skylark through Greeley. As he passed the Rialto Theater at around 8:30 p.m., Perry lost control of the car and got into a minor accident. The driver of the other car got out and tried to approach Perry in the hopes that they could resolve the issue then and there. Instead of getting out of the car and apologizing, Perry drove off into the night, and that was the last time he was ever seen alive. When Perry and his brand new car failed to return home that evening, his parents knew something was wrong and reported him missing to the Crawford County Sheriff's Department. As the investigation into Perry's disappearance would progress, the FBI would become involved and offer its support. Shortly after Perry disappeared from the scene of the accident, his car was discovered on the side of I-75. The person who discovered the car told investigators that the engine was still running, the lights were on, and the doors were open. Investigators believed that Perry fled the scene due to his criminal record and feared that another incident would send him to prison. What baffled investigators most, though, was the fact that snow had fallen that evening in Grayling and on I-75, but no footprints were leading away from Perry's car. Investigators worked tirelessly and even found possible links to California. In 1978, Perry's parents were watching the TV when they saw a segment about unemployment. Behind the presenter was a line of people waiting to get their unemployment checks, and Perry's parents believed that they saw him standing in that line. Investigators were never able to confirm that this was Perry, and it was just another dead end. In 1992, Michael, Perry's brother, received a bizarre phone call. The caller mimicked cartoon characters and asked Michael what they thought of his impression. This call led Michael to believe that Perry was alive and still out there, as the two would often mimic cartoon characters as children. Unfortunately, the caller hung up before Michael could get any more information, and they never called back again. Perry's dental records were sent to Louisiana for comparison to a John Doe that was discovered in 1975. But unfortunately, the agency responsible for handling these lost them. Perry Otto Corlew is described as a white male with brown hair, green eyes, 6'2" to 6'4", and 155 to 165 pounds. Anyone with information is asked to contact the FBI at 313-965-2323 or the Crawford County Sheriff's Office at 989-348-6341, quoting case number 2000-435-74. 19-year-old Casey Daniel Burke had recently come into a substantial amount of money. Casey was also the father to a young daughter, and he was working on himself and a good future for his family. In 2003, Casey would mysteriously disappear. Shortly after his disappearance, rumors began to spread and the FBI was called in to investigate. April 14, 2003 felt different for Veronica Gendron, Casey's mother. That morning, the two got into a heated argument. Words were exchanged and Casey left the home in a fit of rage. Veronica gave her son some space to cool off, and a few hours later, Casey returned home and apologized to his mother. Not only did he give a verbal apology, but he brought her a gift for his behavior earlier that day. The two discussed the argument, and shortly after, Casey left his home for what would be the last time. As Veronica watched Casey leave the home in Nespelem, Washington, a wave of fear and dread washed over her. At around 7:40 p.m., Casey left a video rental store along State Route 155 and Schoolhouse Loop Road and was never seen again. When Casey failed to return home, his mother immediately rushed into the town of Nespelem to look for her son. When her efforts failed, she contacted the Colville Tribal Police Department and reported her son missing. Investigators began by retracing Casey's last steps, starting at the video rental store. Unfortunately, there were very few clues left behind, and the investigation quickly ground to a halt. Weeks after Casey disappeared, there were whisperings around town that two local men had confessed to taking his life the night that he disappeared. The FBI was called in to investigate, and what they would uncover would shock them. The FBI discovered that two individuals who have never been publicly named confessed to taking Casey's life on April 14, 2003. It's been said that on that evening, Casey and the two men were up in the mountains in the Colville Indian Reservation, working on their car that had broken down. Casey had been asked to retrieve a wrench, but when he delivered the wrong one, the two men attacked him and left him there. Unfortunately, the FBI has never been able to confirm this story, and there's no physical evidence in the Colville Indian Reservation. Casey's family are now desperate for justice and believe that the story is true. Casey Daniel Burke is described as a Native American male with brown hair, brown eyes, 6'2" and 160 to 190 pounds. He has tattoos of Native pride on his arm, NP between his thumb and forefinger, and a cross on his left finger. He was possibly last seen wearing a blue shirt and blue jeans. Anyone with information is asked to contact the FBI's Seattle office at 206-622-0460 or Detective Dave Everett of the Colville Tribal Law Enforcement at 509-634-2249, quoting case number 2003-2392. 59-year-old Sandra Hamby Prince had the world at her feet. She co-founded an agency in Tampa, Florida, and was flourishing in her environment. Sandra was known as an intelligent and hardworking woman who cared deeply for her family. So when she disappeared without a trace, her family knew something was terribly wrong. According to reports, Sandra was last seen on December 30th, 2005, at the office where she worked in the 4600 block of North 56th Street in Tampa. Coworkers later told investigators that Sandra left the office at around 4:30 p.m., telling them that she had a long, relaxing weekend planned in northern Florida. When Sandra then failed to show up to work on Monday morning, her colleagues alerted her family and the authorities. Sandra was dedicated to her work at the treatment center, and it was extremely out of character for her to miss work. The Temple Terrace Police Department took on the missing person case and decided to visit Sandra's home. When they arrived, they found Sandra's white 1994 Buick Park Avenue in the garage. Everything in the home was described as spotless, and the only things missing were Sandra's purse, a journal, a picture of her and her boyfriend, Earl Cranston Pippin, and a towel. Investigators immediately zeroed in on Sandra's boyfriend and uncovered something shocking. Earl Cranston Pippin was the sole beneficiary of Sandra's estate and funds. The FBI quickly became involved in the case and also uncovered that during the time Sandra and Earl had been dating, Earl had been married. When he was initially questioned by investigators, he denied ever knowing Sandra. Once investigators discovered that Earl was the sole beneficiary of Sandra's estate, they questioned him again and subjected him to a lie detector test, which he passed. Earl wasn't the only person of interest in Sandra's disappearance, and just days after the mysterious disappearance, an unknown man was captured on CCTV withdrawing $800 from her bank account. Investigators circulated the facial approximation of the man with Sandra's bank cards, as he went to great lengths to cover his face on CCTV. Since 2005, investigators have drawn a blank and Sandra's case is at a standstill. Sandra Hamby Prince is described as a white female with brown hair, brown eyes, 5'6" and 100 pounds. Anyone with information is asked to contact the FBI Tampa office at 813-253-1000 or the Temple Terrace Police Department at 813-989-7110, quoting case number 06-00030. 26-year-old Elizabeth Salgado was excited about the future ahead of her. She had recently moved from Mexico to Provo, Utah to attend the Nomen Global Language Center. While her English was limited, Elizabeth flourished in her new environment and her language skills grew stronger with each day that passed. Unfortunately, Elizabeth would not get to see how the future would play out for her when she mysteriously disappeared one day. On April 16, 2015, Elizabeth left the Nomen Global Language Center after a long day of classes and studying. It's believed that she was headed for her apartment, which was just a short distance away from the campus. Elizabeth would never make it to her apartment, and when she failed to contact her family, she was reported missing. Investigators immediately began searching for Elizabeth, but with such a wide area to search, they quickly found themselves overwhelmed. During the initial investigation, it's believed that Elizabeth was taken against her will as she made the 1800 block or 1 mile walk to her apartment. Detectives combed through Elizabeth's phone and bank records, but since April 16th, there had been no activity. The search for Elizabeth would continue, and the FBI also joined in on the search. Elizabeth's family also traveled to the US to help look for her. In May of 2018, Elizabeth's case would come to a tragic conclusion when it was announced that skeletal remains discovered in Hobble Creek Canyon belonged to Elizabeth Salgado. According to investigators, Hobble Creek Canyon is around 15 miles from the campus, and her remains were found in an area off the road, and it was in an area that you would not find by being on a trail. Investigators believe that Elizabeth was driven out to that area by people unknown. Anyone with information is asked to contact the FBI's Salt Lake City office at 801-579-1400 or the Utah County Sheriff's Office at 801-851-4010. 36-year-old Sherry Ann Culp had recently gone through a divorce and was looking ahead to the future. She was seeing someone new and was active in the lives of her 2 children. On January 16, 1998, Sherry left the building where she worked at the Fullerton Industrial Park in Springfield, Virginia. As she steadied her hands on the wheel and prepared to drive off, a strange man approached her. Within seconds, loud shots rang out and Sherry was gone. Passers-by and curious staff at the industrial park rushed to Sherry's aid, but it was too late. The police were quickly called to the scene and discovered that Sherry had been attacked while she sat in her car. Sherry was rushed to the Inova Fairfax Hospital, but she didn't survive the attack. Sherry's family were left devastated by the news and had no idea who could want to hurt her. Sherry had gotten divorced from her husband, with which she had 2 children in 1996. Investigators focused on Sherry's ex-husband as the person of interest. However, no evidence has ever been found to link him to the crime. Eyewitnesses described seeing a man dressed in dark clothes with a hood close to the crime scene. Another witness saw this man running away from Sherry's car, and it's believed he's her attacker. When local law enforcement couldn't solve the case, they called in the FBI. The FBI continues to investigate Sherry's case. 25 years have passed since the crime, and the FBI is still no closer to catching the person responsible. There's currently a $10,000 reward for information that leads to the arrest of the perpetrator. He's described as a white male in his 30s with sandy brown hair and around 6 foot. Anyone with information is asked to contact the FBI's Richmond office at 804-261-1044 or the Fairfax County Police Department at 703-691-2131. Some of the most enduring mysteries surround the most iconic and famous photos ever taken. This is especially the case when the photographer captured an unstaged and unexpected moment, like the mysteries surrounding the so-called Babushka Lady and the Tank Man. Rarer are mysteries that surround completely staged photos, but that's exactly the case with the famous lunch atop a skyscraper image. For the past 90 years, the photo has been shared around the world. It was first published in October of 1932 and has since become iconic. It's been used to represent the hardworking immigrants that built America during the Great Depression. But who exactly they were remains an unsolved mystery. The famous photo shows 11 workers sitting on a steel beam. They sit more than 800 feet above Manhattan, with the skyscraperless skyline and Central Park in the background. Far below them, the workers look casual as they share their lunch and cigarettes. Only one even seems to notice the camera. It looks like this is just another day in the office for these men, but that wasn't truly the case. The skyscraper the men are sitting upon in this mysterious photo is the Rockefeller Center, and the images were captured as part of a publicity push for the building. During the construction of the Rockefeller Center, more than 250,000 people worked on the job. Many, if not most of them, were immigrants, primarily from Italy or Ireland. The pay was relatively good, especially as the Great Depression took hold in the US and abroad, but it was a dangerous job. There were little to no safety procedures, and standing on the metal beams 50 stories up wasn't unusual for them. But the famous photo wasn't simply a candid moment of the 11 workers. It was one in a series of photographs of posed shots set up by the photographer. Other photos included some of the men lying down pretending to sleep, and the whole group waving their caps at the photographer. Even though the photos were staged, the identities of the men in the shot were never recorded. Over the years, people have claimed their fathers, uncles, or other family members were in the picture, but finding actual evidence proved to be harder. In 2013, a documentary identified the man third from the left as Joe Eckner, and the man third from the right as Joe Curtis. Little else is known about the two men, and the identities of the other 9 remain a mystery. Some may believe it's better that way, as the men have come to represent countless family members who helped build American cities. There have been hundreds, if not thousands, of alleged sightings of the Loch Ness Monster. After the infamous Bigfoot, it may be the most photographed cryptid out there. Each photograph has its own story and debate about legitimacy. While some of the most famous photographs have been proven to be fakes, others are still waiting to conclusively be proven one way or the other. The McNabb photograph is one of the most famous mysterious photos that allegedly show the Loch Ness Monster. Peter McNabb was a respected bank manager, taking a vacation in Scotland with his son in 1956. He stopped at the side of the road near Urquhart Castle, the location of many Nessie sightings. While his son worked under the hood of the car, McNabb took out his camera, preparing to take photos of the castle ruins, when something else caught his eye. According to McNabb, it was fast-moving, and he had to quickly change camera lenses to snap a quick photo of the object. He then took a second photo with a fixed-focused Kodak camera. The black and white photo shows what looks like 2 black humps just protruding from the water, with a wake behind them. By the time McNabb's son looked to see what his father was shouting about, the creature had disappeared back beneath the waves. McNabb continued to insist that he saw something, telling a bus of tourists that stopped at the site. They unsurprisingly didn't believe him. McNabb would have the photos printed but didn't hold on to the negatives. He showed them privately to friends and family, but each time he was ridiculed. As McNabb had an important bank job, he didn't want to risk his reputation by sharing the images more publicly. 2 years after the photo was taken, another Nessie photograph was published in local papers. This photo was taken by fisherman Hugh Cockrell and appeared to show a similar hump just rising out of the water. McNabb decided to share his own images and sent them to the paper. The response to McNabb's images was just more ridicule, and he eventually ended up throwing them away. By the time researcher Roy Mackle got his hands on a print, it was badly damaged, and he ruled that it was likely a fake. Modern analysis has shown that might not necessarily be the case. But without the negatives of the images, it's impossible to be sure what McNabb captured in his mysterious photo. In 2018, a mysterious image made the news in Britain after a tourist claimed to have captured a photograph of a ghost monk at the site of an ancient castle. John Wicks had visited Ainsford Castle with his son for his son's history project. The castle in Kent, England, was constructed not long after the Norman conquest. It was built by William de Ainsford I, a knight and sheriff of Kent, who later retired to become a monk. For 200 years, the castle remained in the Ainsford family until they ran out of heirs. An ownership dispute eventually left the castle empty, and it fell into ruins. In the 1800s and 1900s, restoration work took place, and today it's managed by English Heritage as a tourist location. It was January of 2018 when John and his son visited the castle. According to John, his son wanted to know how castles were built, which prompted the visit. They took a few photographs and then went home. It was only after they arrived home that John noticed a strange figure in one of the pictures. The figure stood at the top of a set of stairs and was apparently wearing a long black coat or robes with its hood up. John claims that after some research, he discovered mentions of a monk that supposedly haunts the castle. He posted the image online and was able to confirm that the figure wasn't simply an alcove in the wall. Beyond that, it's hard to tell what or who was captured in this mysterious photo. John insisted nobody else was about when the picture was taken, but it may simply have been another tourist who he hadn't seen. Without further information, it may be impossible to answer this strange mystery. The location of St. Botolph's Church has been the site of Christian worship for many centuries. Some sources state early Christians in the Roman period worshipped at the spot in London's East End. And if one mysterious photograph is to be believed, it seems like some of that history doesn't want to remain in the past. St. Botolph was an early English abbot who later became the saint of boundaries and travel. That meant 4 churches near gates in the city walls surrounding Old London were dedicated to the saint, including the one at Bishopsgate. The first known record of the church dates back to 1212, but it has been rebuilt a number of times since then. The church that stands today was finished in 1729 and built on the foundations of its older predecessors. Since then, the church has witnessed some dark times, including the reign of Jack the Ripper. In fact, just a 2-minute walk away lies Bishopsgate Police Station. On the night of September 29, 1888, Catherine Eddowes was arrested for public intoxication and held in a cell at the police station while she sobered up. She was released in the early hours of September 30th. Her body was found less than an hour later. Despite the close proximity to the last known location of the Ripper victims, St. Botolph's at Bishopsgate wasn't associated with Ripper lore, or anything particularly mysterious at all until 1982. Chris Brackley was on a visit to the church with his wife when he captured this mysterious photograph. The focus was on the stained glass window, but on the upper left-hand side, a ghostly image of a person could be seen in the choir loft. The couple was either alone in the church, or there was only one other visitor, and nobody was up in the choir loft. Analysis of the negatives revealed the image hadn't been tampered with, and this wasn't a case of double exposure. Years later, a builder contacted Chris with more information about the photo. The builder claimed he'd been working on a construction project in the church when he disturbed a collection of coffins. One came open, revealing the surprisingly well-preserved body of a woman who supposedly looked like the person in Chris's photograph. Who or what Chris captured, and if there's any truth to the builder's story, remains an unanswered mystery. In 2014, the LA Times published an article about homelessness in Santa Monica. What the article was a photograph taken a year earlier of a homeless woman who went by the name of Diane. For Robin Burton, it was a clue that she hoped would lead her to her missing mother. Claudia Leslie Wells had been missing since April of 1998. Claudia had a history of mental health problems, including schizophrenia. Her condition meant that she was often in and out of the lives of her family, including her daughter, Robin. Towards the end of 1994, Claudia moved to an apartment with her mother, who had recently broken her hip. She planned to care for her mother, but discovered that her mother needed round-the-clock care that Claudia couldn't provide. She left town again in January of 1995, the last time Robin would ever hear from her. But this wouldn't be the last known sighting of Claudia. She would spend years in homeless shelters and hostels. By 1998, she was living in a YMCA shelter in San Diego. On April 10th, she left the shelter with a bus token and $2 in change, with plans to visit the Veterans Affairs Hospital to pick up her medication. Claudia would never make it to the hospital, and there have been no confirmed sightings of her since. As an adult, Robin would hire a private investigator to get to the bottom of her mother's mysterious disappearance. In 2015, it was discovered that Claudia's social security number had been used at another homeless shelter in San Diego in 2013. Shortly after this discovery was made, a friend showed Robin the LA Times article. Robin was convinced the mysterious photograph was of her mother, though the rest of her family weren't so certain. The photographer who took the image said the woman had called herself Diane, which was an alias Claudia was known to use. The photo had been taken in January of 2013, around the same time and in the same area where Claudia's social security number was used. By this point, the lead was 2 years old, but Robin still traveled to the area in the hopes someone might know where she had gone. She visited Skid Row. The homeless population there was helpful, but they couldn't provide Robin with any information. There have been a number of sightings, and it seems like Claudia may have moved to the Dallas or Richardson areas of Texas, but so far none have been confirmed. Robin is still hopeful her mother is still alive and has helped dozens of people locate their missing loved ones during her research. Claudia would be 69 years old today. She's described as being between 5 foot and 5'2" with brown eyes. Anybody with information can contact the San Diego police at 619-561-2277. The Tower of London has been described as the most haunted location in England. For centuries, it's been the site of evil acts, and that history is now embedded into the stone and timber of the complex itself. The tower was first built shortly after the Norman conquest, and it's 1,000 years old. It was once a luxurious palace and a royal residence, but today it's mostly famous for its role as a prison, and for the ghosts that still linger there. The most famous of these prisoners, and the subject of one of the most infamous historical mysteries, were the princes in the tower. In 1483, King Edward IV's 2 sons were imprisoned in the tower, following the passing of their father. 12-year-old Edward was the heir to the throne, but his uncle convinced Parliament to declare both him and his younger brother Richard illegitimate. It took away their claims to the throne, and the uncle was crowned Richard III. For the first few months of their imprisonment, the princes were treated well. They'd often be seen playing in the grounds and didn't seem too concerned about their uncle's actions. But in June of 1483, they disappeared and were never seen again. Shakespeare claimed Richard III had someone take the lives of his nephews, though he was writing for Elizabeth I, whose grandfather had defeated Richard in battle, so it's hard to determine how much of that was political propaganda. It's likely that the boys never left the tower alive though, and when 2 skeletons were found hidden beneath a staircase in 1674, they were believed to be the remains of the princes. The princes still haunt the tower. Witnesses report seeing them in their nightgowns, looking afraid and huddling close to one another. Other ghosts include some of those we know who ended their lives within the walls, or just outside them. Henry VIII's second wife, Anne, lost her life after being found guilty of treason. She too is still said to wander around the tower, along with Henry VI, Lady Jane Grey, and Margaret Pole. Archaeologists studying the buildings surrounding the tower have found signs that evil entities have been feared here for centuries. Witch marks designed to keep witches and demons at bay have been found and dated back to the 16th century. Even though people were meeting their violent ends at the tower as recently as 1941, it's today a tourist attraction, making it one of the most visited evil places in the world. Denver International Airport is subject to more strange conspiracy theories than any other airport in the world. Whether or not the location is actually evil, or simply extremely weird and creepy, may never be known for certain. The airport wasn't opened until 1995. By that point, it was 18 months behind schedule, and more than $2.2 billion over budget. Even when it was opened, not everything ran smoothly. Denver tried to feature an automatic baggage handling system that was eventually scrapped because it wouldn't work. But that was far from the most mysterious or creepy thing about the location. Blucifer is the nickname given to a 32-foot statue that stands outside the entrance of the airport. The airport designers wanted a symbol of the American Wild West and commissioned artist Luis Jimenez to create a statue of a horse. Jimenez would spend the next 13 years working on a giant statue of a horse standing on its hind legs, rearing up as if in battle. The horse itself is blue and has fierce orange eyes. In 2006, while working on the statue, part of the structure broke away and struck Jimenez. He passed away from the wound, and Blucifer had to be finished by other artists. Other than the terrifying horse statue, other creepy aspects around the airport include gargoyles that look down on travelers, baring their teeth and rolling their eyes, and creepy murals that are said to predict the end of the world. The murals are officially meant to represent children wishing for an end to war. While some do seem to be people from different cultures living in harmony, others depict burning buildings, terrified children, and a soldier in a gas mask striking the dove of peace. Outside the airport, conspiracy theorists get the confirmation they're looking for in the form of the capstone to a time capsule. The capsule was sealed in 1994 and isn't supposed to be opened until 2094. Inside, there are supposed to be coins, tokens from a local casino, a baseball, and a pair of shoes from the former mayor of Denver. But on the stone cover of the capsule, above the date that it was sealed, is the square and compass symbol of the Freemasons and the names of 2 Grand Lodges and their Grand Masters. This alone isn't necessarily anything sinister. The Masonic lodges crafted and laid the stone. But combined with other conspiracy theories surrounding Denver Airport, it only adds to the creepiness of this possibly evil location. Malheur Butte in eastern Oregon is said to be the home of evil spirits. Even its name, French for misfortune, is a nod to the area's dark and evil history and the spirits that live there today. The Jut of the Rock is a long-extinct volcano that once dammed rivers and filled in lakes across eastern Oregon and Washington. Today, it's only 100 meters tall, but stands out against the plains surrounding it. During the settling of Oregon, it was used by Native Americans as a lookout. It was easy to watch and monitor the covered wagons from the vantage point, and many people lost their lives along the trail, and their spirits are said to still haunt the area surrounding Malheur Butte. But it's not only those unfortunate enough to pass away in its shadow that still call this evil location home. Volcanoes are often associated with hell and the underworld. Even though Malheur Butte is long extinct, it still has geothermal activity in the area in the form of hot springs. Either this, or simply the foreboding nature of this isolated peak, apparently once attracted a convent of witches. The legends surrounding Malheur Butte don't provide much information about when these witches were supposedly active. But even today, people remember being told by their parents not to go out at night for fear of the witches. Some have reported seeing cloaks that move in the breeze, and it's possible the ghosts of these witches are still here today. But the most common evil spirit seen in the area surrounding Malheur Butte is the dark dog-like creatures. The creatures are often referred to as imps and will chase away people exploring the location at night. They're described as being extremely thin, with abnormally large heads and black pits instead of eyes. They've been blamed for strange noises that have been heard by residents in the area surrounding the hill. The oldest stories said that the imps preferred to spend time in the hot springs, but they've been reported all over this ancient evil location, and they don't take kindly to visitors. The town of Avila in Missouri has a dark history, only hinted at by its abandoned buildings and lonely streets. Today, the town is a living ghost town, with only 100 people still living there, but the population is added to by the spirits of shadow people. The town was established in the early 1800s and was pretty ordinary until the Civil War. Unlike the towns around it, Avila sided with the Union, which earned it the wrath of Confederate guerrilla soldiers. On March 8, 1862, a group of 100 fighters attacked, taking the lives of 2 people, including an early town leader, and wounding many others. After that point, the town became better protected by the Union Army and fought back against the so-called bushwhackers. One disturbing story that's lived on over the centuries is that of Rotten Johnny Reb. At some point during the war, the remains of a rebel bushwhacker were found. His skull was taken and placed in a tree as a warning to others not to cross Avila. According to the legend, the soldier now haunts the town, looking for his head and any so-called Yankees to take revenge against. He's most commonly seen in the fall, and it's believed his skull was placed in the tree on All Hallows' Eve, giving him extra power. The only way to break the evil curse is to find the skull and bury it in a cemetery dedicated to Confederate soldiers. The only problem with this, though, is that the location of the tree in question is a mystery. The tree earned the ominous nickname the Death Tree. In the day, it's a favored perch for crows. According to legend, it was once a fruit tree in an apple orchard, but all the trees around it became diseased, and the tree itself would not produce any fruit. Today, Avila is largely abandoned. It received a boom in population after the war, but most residents moved away to bigger cities in the 20th century. When the I-44 was built, bypassing Route 66, which ran through the town, Avila was almost completely abandoned. In 2020, 103 people were recorded as living in Avila, but there is allegedly something else that walks down the streets. Shadow people that have been spotted throughout the town. They don't seem to interact with the living, instead walking through the abandoned buildings and streets. They're believed to be the impressions of people who once lived in the town. While not necessarily evil, they're definitely a disturbing sight to see late at night. North Head Quarantine Station in Australia is believed to be one of the most haunted locations in the country. Hundreds, if not thousands of people lost their lives at the station, and an evil presence has taken over part of the facility. Q Station, as it's now called, was in operation from 1832 to 1984. In the 1800s, ships from Europe would bring over convicts who'd been sentenced to exile in Australia. With cholera and other diseases prevalent in Europe, a quarantine station was set up to try to stop the spread in Australia. Many of those that disembarked at Q Station would never leave. For more than a century, the sick were forced to stay in the facility, being tended to by nurses who would often become sick themselves. In particular, the Spanish flu pandemic in 1918 claimed many lives. There are 3 cemeteries at the site and recordings of 572 burials, but in 1888, many of the records were lost, and there may be as many as 4,000 people buried at the facility. Today, North Head Quarantine Station hosts tours for ghost seekers. There are many parts of the facility that are believed to be haunted, including the showers where the sick were washed with acid, but the evilest spirit is believed to stay at the Gravedigger's Cottage. The 2-bedroom cottage is believed to have been the home to a doctor or a quarantine officer. It sits between 2 cemeteries and has a number of ghosts that linger there. There's believed to be a female spirit that stays in the bathroom. She passed away in the tub itself, and her spirit is just as terrified as she was in the moments before her passing. Downstairs, there's a spirit that's been called Sam. He's a shadowy figure with a dark, wide-brimmed hat and a black cloak, the uniform of a gravedigger. While Sam is believed to be mostly harmless, there is a malicious spirit, in particular, who doesn't like women. Visitors have reported unseen hands holding their throats, the sensation of being pushed underwater, or something heavy being pushed against their chests. Many of the records from Q Station have been lost, so there's no official record of who or what this spirit may be. He has been called evil, and it's possible there is more danger at Q Station than sickness and disease. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.